Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to our Engineering for the New Reality podcast series. This pandemic has forced companies to do a master reset on everything from supply chain to manufacturing, compliance, partnerships, and even distribution. And there's probably no other industry that is undergoing as massive a transformation as the healthcare industry. What are the older ways of working that need to be abandoned? And how must healthcare adapt to this new normal? We have with us on the show JD, who heads our healthcare business in America. JD, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Hi Akshay, thank you very much. Good morning, good evening to you. It's in the morning my time. Doing well, getting used to the social distancing and working from home and doing video calls with my colleagues and customers. So it's a whole new world. And like you said, in the front end of all of these is the healthcare industry. So a lot of changes, a lot of innovations happening. So I'm happy to be here in a different way, though. Excitement is there.
Great. So, JD, tell us, what are some of the paradigm shifts that you see in the healthcare industry in this post COVID era? How will device manufacturers, healthcare providers, and practitioners have to change the way they function and operate?
Sure, Akshay, that's a good question. And as you can imagine, like any other industry, right? Every part of the healthcare industry is disrupted by COVID-19. However, the level of disruption for the different parts or the different players are different. Like at the very front end of this are the hospital systems and the doctors' practices, the independent practices. We all know, and it's been a much talked about issue is the deferral of the postponement of the elective procedures. It's impacted every hospital enormously, and if you know in the United States, the standard operating margin for hospitals, even in normal times, is in the range of 1.5 to 2%. And because of COVID-19, what has happened is the entire, bottom line earning part of any healthcare system is elective surgeries and outpatient visits. And both of them are down to 10, 15, 20% only to emergencies. So that has impacted the hospital systems and the provider practices big time. And a lot of them are closing. There's a lot of furloughs happening and so on and so forth. So basically, it has pushed everybody to look at how we can make the remote care, the telehealth, the touchless procedures, how can we make them mainstream and make them applicable for treating patients. Besides COVID-19, people who need immediate attention, chronic disease management patients, and so on. But as a result of this crunch, the hospitals are postponing their purchase of their equipments beyond the PPEs and the ventilators and some more of the scanning and imaging devices. Now they, of course, have started ramping up on their purchases for the testing equipments and so on. But because of everything else being pushed out, our customers in the medtech space or the life sciences space, the OEMs, the device OEMs, their orders are down. Their sales is significantly down. But not every company is impacted in the same manner. So if you look at the top 10 medical device companies, the product mix of these companies are very different. Somebody is more exposed on the orthopedic side, so they will get more impacted by this negatively. Somebody who has more, bigger business in the ventilation and the patient monitoring and the scanning and imaging devices, they will soon see an upsurge in their business. People who are mostly into, let's say, cardiac disease management or diabetes care solutions, their business don't get impacted positive or negative. Maybe it will get a little bit shifted by weeks, but it will not impact as much. So it's very different way things are playing out, and if that's for the medical device OEMs. If you look at the pharma companies, there is very little difference in terms of how their business is performing. It's business as usual. If at all they're seeing a lot of positives because of all the work on vaccines and testing and in all those consumables that are getting sold out as a result of this. Whether it's your some of the um, soft soaps or any of one of those that are getting used up. Now, if you look at the health insurance companies, even though they are getting impacted because of higher reimbursement they are having to do as a result of COVID-19, but these companies have massively deep pockets. So they can weather the storm very easily. So healthcare providers, which are hospitals, are at one end, and the insurance companies are exactly on the other end where they make a lot of money. Their bottom lines are really thick, so they are not much impacted. So the response is very different from different people. Just to summarize my answer to this, everyone must conserve cash, so that goes without saying. They're trying to operate their optimize their manufacturing and R&D functions and any other functions very differently in today's context. And the important part to mention here, Akshay, is that we have a unique set of offerings that can help our customers in both medical device OEMs or pharma companies and hospitals. So if you look at OEMs, we can help them with acceleration of their R&D for the new products that are required to treat COVID-19, whether it's the testing equipments, IVD equipments, whether it's the new designs or more affordable ventilator designs, or it is a question of helping them with their manufacturing capacity expansions in validating their new lines or existing lines, or finding out new supply chain partners for them. Finally, all these new products and new procedures have to be approved by the regulatory authorities like FDA in US. So we have a very strong service offering in QARA, quality assurance and regulatory assurance, and we are already working with a few of our customers to take their products to the market after the regulatory approvals and so on and so forth. So that's a slightly long answer to a very short question, but it's the impact is so much I couldn't package it any shorter than this.
That was great, JD. Thank you so much. So, in these past few months, one of the most popular demands in the medical industry has been improve the speed of diagnosis, but don't compromise on the accuracy or the efficacy of the tests. So, what does the healthcare industry do to accomplish this, and how can LTTS help?
Sure, sure. So let's look at what are the major roadblocks to get the products to market quickly, right? So one is, of course, the engineering teams have to come up with new designs if they don't have a product, or if there are companies who are trying to launch new products in the market just to sort of meet the supply and the demand requirements, because the demand has suddenly become 3x and 4x. So a lot many more companies have to fill that demand and create new product lines. So they have to design, verify and validate those products in their labs first, right? The functionalities and the features and all of that. And then once the product is ready for production, they have to send it out for clinical trials. And the clinical trials go through two or three different phases. But in today's context, there is something called emergency use authorizations, right? So FDA or CE, FDA for US and CE for Europe and MDR and all of that in different countries, it has to give a very short window. They can give a regulatory approval for a certain period. So that's called emergency or use authorization. But eventually these products have to go through the full cycle of 510K, let's say, for FDA again. So the full regulatory approval will be required. So it's a long process. Usually this whole process takes about anywhere between 12 to 18 months from the time the product is ready to be launched in the market to the time they get the regulatory approvals. Now they have to bring that down to like 1/4 of what that is. So in 3 months they have to get their products. So what we can do, multiple things. Okay, we can, and before that, so stepping back a little bit, for this to happen, the OEMs the clinical trial organizations, which are third parties. These are not medical device OEMs, or these are not like any other regulatory agencies. There's a third party which is sitting in between, who will do the clinical trials of these devices in the marketplace. Then there are regulatory agencies who will have to approve the emergency use of these devices. And then finally, the regulatory bodies like CDC, healthcare bodies like CDC or HHS, they will have to say, yes, go ahead and sell these devices in the market. So it's a long process, but they're all trying to cut short the time cycle. And where we can help is very quickly ramp up our team for both design as well as verification and validation of the devices. We can set up very quickly. We are setting up offshore teams that are working with a couple of our customers to validate their products and designs. Let's say, for example, we have a team of a pretty large team for quality and regulatory assurance, whether it's documentation, whether it's validation, whether it's pre-certification, whether it's labs. All of these are being utilized for us to help our customers go through the validation process of the regulatory agencies for certifications and emergency use. And finally, they have to be manufactured, and they will have to do the capacity enhancements of the existing lines. They'll have to put it on multiple shifts. So we are in business with 3, 4 of our customers, where we are just supporting them on manufacturing capacity expansion, whether it's in the lines or it's in the validation of.
So, JD, we've been talking about remote patient care for such a long time. And I think that this COVID era has made this even more essential, right? So, how can healthcare providers deliver medical grade remote care to patients? And what can LTTS do to enable this?
Very good question. Very good question. And this is one of the areas which is really seen enormous amount of surge in adoption. If there is one positive outcome of this life-changing event for all of us across the globe, it is the increased adoption of the telehealth and the remote care solutions by everyone, whether it's the providers, hospitals, practitioners, insurance companies, and the patients. So everybody has gone on board and mainstream with telehealth and remote care. If you were to rewind the last couple of months, the situation was very, very different. And two of the major issues were, one, a lot of the telehealth procedures that are being used today were not approved by regulatory authorities as a way to use, as a way to treat patients for, let's say, chronic care or even for emergency or acute care. And insurance companies, which is a very big thing in the US market, insurance companies wouldn't reimburse any treatment or any medication as a result of telehealth. So there were only a handful of treatments they would do it. And one of the most important bodies for that is Center for Medicare and Medicaid, where about 10% of 10 to 15% of healthcare reimbursements are actually done by Medicare. It's a government agency, and they wouldn't approve the telehealth based treatments. And the third one, beyond the two that I just mentioned, there were a lot of security concerns by the patients. So there are multiple things that were coming. Technology was ready, solutions were there, a lot of innovations were happening in the digital health space by the startups, but it was not taking off. But as a result of COVID, one is, as of today, there are more than 80 telehealth procedures that got approved by the regulatory agencies like CDC and HHS, right? More than 80. It was less than 10 2 months back. CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid, they have approved, telehealth procedures for reimbursement. And insurance companies have followed suit, and they've also agreed to reimburse a lot of the procedures and the medications. As a result, the providers have really rolled out in very great numbers. Patients have adopted this technology like never before. Some statistics, I've been reading with the, Mayo Clinics. I was talking to Cone Health, and we have some discussions going on with Cleveland Clinics of the world, and basically to understand what's going on. And there are multiple reports out there. So the uptake of this you will be surprised to see that it used to be, let's say, for a very large hospital system, it used to be 1,000 or 2,000 telehealth transactions in a month. That has become 30, 40, 50,000 transactions in a week. So that's the level of expansion that has happened on the telehealth side. But as a result of this, all the solutions that were there in the market being provided by all of these new and companies and the startups and the technology companies and a lot of the medical device companies as well, they were not tested for this level of scalability, the interoperability, the security issues that they may face, the efficacy of the solution, which is very important for the medical, the healthcare industry. That you claim that this solution or treatment will provide these benefits. How do you prove that they are providing these benefits? So one way to do it is clinical trials. Again, they have to go through the trials and all of that. So there is a lot of technology glitches that need to get straightened out, whether it's testing these solutions for performance, making sure that they're interoperable with the different medical devices and the EMR systems that are there, healthcare IT systems in the hospitals. The security issues are not there. People are not able to hack into the critical medical devices that are class 3 devices or class 2 devices. And in all of these areas, LTTS is working with a number of our clients to work on either validating the performance, adding new features and functionalities, or with the cybersecurity challenges, doing their vulnerability analysis, or just working out their interoperability solutions with, let's say, the EMR vendors or in the devices, because they're right in the middle of that. So there is enormous amount of activity. Probably the biggest amount of activity in the healthcare space today is in the telehealth by every player possible, whether it's the providers, whether it's the pharma companies, medical device OEMs, insurance companies, and the technology industry, because this is where the technology industry has the largest amount of play, whether it's the top ISVs or it's the digital health startup. Did I answer your question, Akshay?
Absolutely, JD. Thank you so much for that. So, you spoke about manufacturing a while ago. And with some of the medical companies looking to relocate their manufacturing facilities, how can LTTS help make this transition smooth and seamless? And how can we help with supply chain? Do you see supply chain disruption as a big challenge?
Yeah, and this is right in our sweet spot, Akshay, as you know, and we have a very strong offering on the manufacturing services, both on the digital and the IMSC side. But this is, as far as the medical device OEMs are concerned, this is a work in progress situation right now. The reason being, unlike many other industry, medtech industry didn't push every manufacturing out to low cost countries, the usual destinations. They still have most companies, especially the top 15, 20 companies, they still have footprint in their own geographic locations in US and Europe. So it's not like supply chain, because of COVID-19, whatever shutdowns happened across the globe, it's not like it shut down their supply chain significantly and it stopped their manufacturing and everything else, but it got impacted definitely. But what is more important for them is it's a wake up call like any other industry. It's a wake up call for medtech industry as well, that they need to look at multiple supply chain manufacturing facilities, and they're exploring, already started exploring. We know it's been in the news that some of the large companies are looking at, let's say, India as an alternative option. They're looking at other South Asian countries as alternative options. Latin America is again picking up in favor as far as this is concerned. So this is a trend which is going to play out in the next few months and quarters. And we are very closely working with some of our customers, whether it's in the, like you said, setting up new plants, transferring existing lines to some other facility or location. We are right in the middle of one of the largest top 5 medical devices customers moving their line from one of the developed countries into India. Supply chain, finding new supply chain is always the biggest challenge because without that, and this is a validated industry, so every part has to be validated, every process has to be validated. So even if you find a supplier and the supplier is not validated, you cannot use those parts. So we do that supplier validation, we do supplier identification, the supplier back office and engineering as they call it. Plus, all the manufacturing services, all the manufacturing lines have to be validated for IQ, OQ, PQ kind of things. So we are providing those services as well. And so it's a work in progress, and we see a surge in demand of that kind of services going forward as a result of COVID.
So, JD, we've seen so many unfortunate incidents of healthcare workers catching infections during the pandemic, which brings us to the point that one of the most critical elements for hospitals is to maintain a safe and healthy environment for its staff to operate in. So, what needs to be done to keep hospital spaces sanitized and healthy? And do you think the LTTS IBM Shield could play a role here?
See, as we all get out of this pandemic situation, I mean, this disease is going to be there with us for a while. All of us know it, and it's been talked about. But the pandemic situation is going to be hopefully over in the next few months. But the biggest issue that is facing is how do people go back to leading their normal life without having to be scared every step of their way. And so it's not just the healthcare workers. Yes, they are right at the front end, they are the warriors, they are sacrificing their sort of lives and family for this. But it is also very important for the patients to feel secure when they go out into let's say getting treated for whatever it is. And again, it's also one of the business issues with the healthcare segment. If the patients don't come back to outpatient departments, if the patients don't go back to elective surgeries, if the patients don't go back for their annual physical examinations, if the chronic disease patients are not connecting with their doctors for checkups and all of that, it's going to face a much larger problem. But so the only way to do it is how do we get them back in a safe and sound manner. So let's try to visualize a hospital environment as a patient. Let's say I walk into a hospital, I have something that I need to get treated. So I walk into the hospital. There may be a robot who's greeting me, and people are already trying such solutions in the US and Japan and Europe as well. Then there's a thermal detection done by the robot, right? Then there's a face image that will be captured, facial image, right? So that will give my biometric information that is already loaded. There are ambient technologies around the lobby in the hospital which will capture my vitals, right? And then there is a digital wayfinder. It will tell me how to reach my doctor's office. And then after I was treated with all kinds of touchless devices, the medication is ordered online, and my medicines are delivered at home, my doorstep. So the entire process is getting sort of disrupted by technology, and there are touchless screens are coming out, or touchless gesture-based or voice-based solutions are coming out, let's say for operating those pathological devices, the IVD devices, or imaging devices. So our IBM Shield was very aptly and timely. They have come up with a number of features and functionalities that exactly addresses these issues beyond the climate control and the environment monitoring that it does. And so solutions for we are sort of talking to a number of different companies for solutions for thermal detection, monitoring of air purifications through sensors. It's a very important part of the hospital infections control, right? Because if hospitals are enclosed environments, so if there's an infection in the air, it gets circulated through the central climate control system. So air purification is a huge problem in the hospitals in today's context. So we have solutions in IBM Shield built for air purification, so sensors and all of that. We have solutions for retrofitting existing medical devices with gesture-based touchless solutions. We have digital wayfinding solutions that are getting integrated with our IBM solutions for patients and other important solutions for the environment and safety. So IBM Shield is probably one of the very few solutions that are ready to be sort of getting in there and solving a lot of the problems that the hospitals and the patient homes are facing as a result of this new pandemic, Akshay.
Thank you so much, JD. This is some great food for thought to anyone in the healthcare industry. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective.
Absolutely, Akshay. It was my pleasure talking to you.
And listeners, thanks for tuning in. Do visit our website at www.ltts.com for more episodes of the Engineering for the New Reality podcast series. So until next time, take care, be safe, and have a great day. Thank you.